The wind screamed across the frozen plains of Kale 7 like a wounded animal. Snow flew sideways, thick and white, making it impossible to see more than a few steps ahead. In this terrible storm, a single figure walked slowly forward, wrapped in a heavy coat and carrying a small bag. Her name was Yuna. She was 32 years old and she lived alone in a stone cottage far from the colony settlement. Most people on Kale 7 thought she was strange for choosing such a lonely life. They did not know her past. They did not know about the war, about the blood on her hands, about the faces that visited her in her dreams. Yuna had been a combat medic in the border wars. She had saved many lives, but she had also watched many people die. After the war ended, she could not go back to normal life. The noise of cities hurt her ears. The crowds made her heart beat too fast. So she came here, to the edge of civilization, to her grandmother's old cottage. Here, there was only silence and snow. Tonight, she was searching for frost blooms. They were rare flowers that only grew in the deepest cold. She used them to make medicine. It was dangerous to be outside in such a storm, but Yuna did not care much about danger anymore. The blizzard suddenly stopped. It happened so fast that Yuna almost fell forward. One moment, wind and snow. The next moment, perfect stillness. She looked up at the sky and saw the clouds pulling back like a curtain. That was when she saw it. Something was sticking out of the glacier about 200 meters away. It was large and shaped like a ship, but not like any ship Yuna had ever seen. It was made of something that looked like crystal, dark and beautiful. Ice covered most of it, but she could see strange symbols carved into its surface. Yuna knew she should turn around and go home. She knew that unknown ships could mean trouble. The Empire had strict laws about alien technology. Anyone who found something like this was supposed to report it immediately. But Yuna had stopped following rules a long time ago. She walked toward the ship. Her boots crunched on the hard snow. As she got closer, she saw that the ship was very old. Not just years old, but maybe centuries old. The ice around it had layers and layers, built up over a very long time. There was a hole in the side of the ship. Something had broken through from the inside, long ago. Yuna turned on her flashlight and climbed through. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Frost covered everything. Strange machines lined the walls, all dead and silent. Yuna moved carefully, her breath making clouds in the frozen air. She found them in the center of the ship. Two creatures lay on the floor, covered in ice. They were huge, much bigger than any human. They had scales that might have been beautiful once and wings folded against their bodies. Long necks, powerful tails, claws like knives. They looked like the dragons from old Earth stories, the ones Yuna's grandmother used to tell her about when she was a child. Yuna stood very still, her heart pounding. Dragons were not supposed to be real. They were myths, legends, stories to tell children. But here they were, right in front of her, frozen in time. She moved closer and kneeled down beside the first one. It was covered in wounds, old and terrible. Someone had tried to kill this creature. Looking at the second one, she saw the same thing. They had been hurt badly before they froze. Yuna put her hand on the first dragon's chest. Under the ice, she felt something, a heartbeat, very slow, very weak, but there. These creatures were not dead. They were sleeping, trapped in the cold, waiting. She should leave. She should go home and forget what she saw. If the Empire found out she had discovered alien beings and did not report them, they would execute her. That was the law, no exceptions. Yuna looked at the dragons. She thought about all the people she had watched die in the war. She thought about the promise she had made to herself afterward, no more death, not if she could stop it. These creatures were dying, slowly but surely. The ice was killing them. If she left them here, they would be dead within days. Yuna closed her eyes and made her decision. It took her 6 hours to get both dragons back to her cottage. She built a sled from pieces of the broken ship. She wrapped the creatures in emergency blankets. She pulled them across the snow, one at a time, her muscles screaming with pain. The storm came back halfway through. Yuna kept going. She fell down many times. She got up every time. She was not strong, but she was stubborn. Her grandmother had always said that stubbornness was worth more than strength. Finally, just as the sun began to rise, she dragged the second dragon through her front door. Her cottage was small, and now it was very crowded. The two dragons took up most of the floor space. Yuna did not care. She turned on every heater she owned. She boiled water and made hot compresses. She began the slow, careful work of melting the ice that covered them. As the ice melted, she saw their scales more clearly. The first dragon had scales like gold, bright and shining. The second had scales like silver mixed with blue, the color of storm clouds. They were beautiful, even covered in old wounds. Yuna worked through the night. She cleaned their wounds with medicine. She wrapped bandages around the worst injuries. She talked to them as she worked, even though they could not hear her. "I do not know what you are," she said softly. "I do not know where you came from or who hurt you, but you are safe now. I will not let anything happen to you." Near dawn, she was so tired that she could barely keep her eyes open. She had done everything she could. Now she could only wait and hope. She sat down on the floor beside the golden dragon, her back against the wall. Just for a moment, she told herself, just a short rest. She fell asleep instantly. An hour later, something woke her, a feeling like being watched. Yuna opened her eyes slowly. The golden dragon was looking at her. His eyes were open, bright gold like his scales. They were old eyes, ancient eyes, filled with thousands of years of memory. He was weak and could not move, but he was awake. And he was staring at the small human woman who had collapsed beside him, her hands still covered in medicine and blood. Yuna stared back at him. She should have been afraid. She was not. "Hello," she said quietly. "You are awake, that is good. Your friend is still sleeping, but I think she will wake up soon too. You are safe here. I am going to help you." The dragon did not move. He did not speak, but something in his ancient eyes changed. Something that might have been surprise, something that might have been wonder. In 10,000 years of life, he had never seen anything quite like this. For 3 days, the golden dragon watched the human woman work. His name was Rin, though he had not spoken it aloud in 10,000 years. He was too weak to move, too weak to speak. But his eyes worked and his mind worked, and so he watched. The woman was small, smaller than any creature Rin had ever seen with such determination. She moved around the cottage constantly, checking wounds, changing bandages, making medicine from strange plants. She barely slept. She barely ate. All her energy went to caring for two creatures she did not know. This confused Rin greatly. In his time, dragons had been powerful. They had ruled the stars. Other species feared them or worshipped them. No one had ever tried to help a dragon out of simple kindness. There was always a reason, always something they wanted in return. But this woman wanted nothing. She just kept working, kept caring, kept trying to save them. On the third night, Rin finally gathered enough strength to try something. He reached out with his mind, the way dragons had done since ancient times. He pushed his thoughts toward the woman very carefully, like a whisper. She was sitting beside the silver dragon, his companion Nari, checking her temperature. Suddenly she went very still. Her eyes went wide. She looked around the room quickly. Rin pushed again, gentler this time. "Do not be afraid." The woman jumped to her feet. Her hands were shaking. "What was that? Who said that?" "I did." Rin pushed the thought carefully. "I am speaking to your mind. My body is too weak for sound. Please do not be frightened. I mean you no harm." The woman stared at him. For a long moment, Rin thought she would run away. Humans were fragile creatures. They scared easily. At least, that was what he remembered from long ago. But this woman did not run. Instead, she took a deep breath and sat back down. "You can speak," she said out loud. "Into my head, you can speak into my head." Yes, it is an old ability of my kind. I am sorry if I startled you. You did startle me, she paused. But I am not going to run away if that is what you are thinking. I did not drag you 6 hours through a blizzard just to abandon you now. Something that felt almost like laughter moved through Rin's chest. You are a strange creature. My name is Yuna, and you are in my home. That makes you my guest. I take care of my guests. My name is Rin. The one beside you is Nari. She is my bonded companion. We have been together for 7,000 years. Yuna's eyes went wide. 7,000 years? How old are you? I stopped counting after 10,000. It seemed pointless. The woman sat in silence for a while, trying to understand. Rin could feel her thoughts just barely, like waves hitting a distant shore. She was not afraid. She was amazed. What happened to you? She asked finally. Who hurt you like this? Rin felt the old pain rise up in his heart. The memories were sharp even after all this time. We were hunted, he said. My kind, the sky dragons, once ruled a great civilization. We were powerful, but we were peaceful. We used our power to protect, not to destroy. Yuna listened without speaking. She had the gift of listening, Rin noticed. Not many creatures did. An empire rose against us. They wanted our power for themselves. They learned that dragon essence, the energy in our blood, could fuel terrible weapons, so they came for us. They killed us one by one. Thousands of my kind gone. Entire planets burned. That is horrible, Yuna said softly. Nari and I were among the last. We fled across the galaxy trying to escape, but they followed us everywhere. Finally, with nowhere left to run, we put ourselves into frozen sleep. We sealed ourselves in this ship and let it drift into the unknown. We hoped that one day our enemies would be gone and we could wake up safely. How long were you frozen? I do not know. Our ship systems are dead. We have no way to measure the time. Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, the year is 4,847 by the common calendar. Does that help you? Rin tried to remember the old dates, the old measurements. When he found the answer, a deep sadness filled him. We slept for 10,000 years. Our empire died. Our people are gone. Nari and I are all that remain. The woman's face changed. Rin felt sorrow flowing from her, warm and genuine. I am sorry. I cannot imagine losing everything like that. And yet, we wake up here, in the home of a stranger who risked her life to save us. Perhaps the universe is not entirely cruel. Or perhaps I am just very stubborn. This time, Rin really did feel like laughing. You are human, yes. I remember your species. You were very young when I fell asleep, just beginning to explore the stars. We have spread far since then, Yuna said. Hundreds of worlds, billions of people. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy, but we survive. That does not surprise me. Even then, there was something unusual about humans, a fire that would not go out. They talked through the night. Rin told her about the old times, about the dragon civilization, about the beauty they had created. Yuna told him about the current galaxy, about the empire that now ruled most of known space, about the wars and the peace and everything in between. When she mentioned the current emperor, Rin's heart went cold. Emperor D, he asked, what is his family name? The House of D. They have ruled for about 3,000 years. Rin felt like ice had formed inside him again. That is the same bloodline. The House of D led the genocide against my people. They are the ones who hunted us. Yuna went pale. The same family after all this time. Dragons live for thousands of years. Perhaps they expected us to outlast our frozen sleep. Perhaps they have been waiting. Then you are still in danger. We are, and by helping us, so are you. Rin looked at her with his ancient golden eyes. You should turn us over to the authorities, Yuna. Tell them you found us and did not know what we were. They might spare your life. Yuna stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the snow was falling gently. The storm had passed. She stood there for a long time, saying nothing. "I was a medic in the border wars," she said finally. "Do you know what that means?" "You helped wounded soldiers." "I tried to save everyone, our soldiers, enemy soldiers. It did not matter to me. A dying person is a dying person. I held hands. I said kind words. I watched hundreds of people take their last breath." Her voice was steady, but Rin could feel the pain behind it. "When the war ended, I promised myself I would never watch someone die if I could prevent it. I came here to escape from death. I came here to find peace." She turned to face him. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set firm. "You came to my door, Rin, frozen and dying. I chose to save you. I am not going to undo that choice because it is dangerous. That is not who I am. That is not who I want to be." Rin did not know what to say. In all his long years, he had never met anyone quite like this. A sound came from behind them. Nari was moving. Her silver-blue scales shifted as she stirred. Her wings unfolded slightly, and then her eyes opened, bright like lightning. She looked around the small cottage, confused. Then her gaze landed on Yuna, standing there with bandages in her hands and determination on her face. Nari reached out with her mind, touching Yuna gently. She saw everything, felt everything, understood everything in an instant. When she spoke, her mental voice was warm and full of wonder. "This one has a dragon's heart." Yuna blinked in surprise. "I do not know what that means." "It means," Nari said, "that you have the soul of our kind, brave, stubborn, kind beyond reason." She lifted her great head weakly and bowed it toward the human woman. "It is an honor to meet you, little one." Before Yuna could respond, an alarm began screaming from her console. Red lights flashed. She ran to check the screen and her face went white. "Ships," she whispered, "Imperial ships. They are entering the atmosphere, dozens of them." Rin and Nari looked at each other. After 10,000 years of sleep, their hunters had found them again. But this time they were not alone. This time they had something they never had before. A human with a dragon's heart. Dawn came slowly on KL7, painting the snow in shades of gray and pale blue. Yuna stood at her window and watched the sun rise over the mountains. It might be the last sunrise she ever saw. 300 Imperial soldiers surrounded her cottage. They stood in perfect formation, their black armor gleaming in the early light. Dropships hovered in the sky above, their engines humming like angry insects. The Empire had sent its best. Behind her, Rin and Nari lay on the floor. They were still too weak to stand, too weak to fight. Their wounds were healing, but slowly. It would be days before they could fly, weeks before they could defend themselves. They were trapped. "You should go out the back," Nari said in Yuna's mind. "Run to the mountains. Hide. We will surrender ourselves and draw their attention away from you." "No," Yuna said firmly. "I told you before, I am not abandoning you." "Little one, this is not a battle you can win. These are professional soldiers. They have weapons that can kill dragons. What can one human do against such power?" "I do not know yet, but I will find something." A knock came at the door. 3 short raps, polite and patient. Yuna took a deep breath and walked toward it. Behind her, she heard Rin shift his weight, trying to rise, failing. "Stay still," she told him without turning around. "You will hurt yourself." She opened the door. A man stood on her doorstep. He was tall and broad, with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes. He wore the uniform of an imperial captain, but his face was not cruel. It was tired. It was conflicted. "Good morning," he said. "I am Captain Wu of the Imperial Strike Force. May I speak with you?" "You may speak. Whether I answer depends on what you say." Captain Wu almost smiled. "Fair enough. We received a report about a crashed alien vessel about 50 kilometers from here. I have orders to search all homes in this area. Have you seen anything unusual in the past few days?" Yuna kept her face perfectly calm. Years of war had taught her how to lie without blinking. I have seen nothing except snow and wind. The storm kept me inside. Wu studied her carefully. His eyes moved to her coat, hanging on a hook beside the door. He saw the old military insignia sewn onto the sleeve. "You served in the border wars," he said. "I did, Medical Corps." The Angel of Kale. His voice changed slightly, softer, more respectful. "I have heard of you. They say you saved over 200 soldiers in the Battle of Mountain Pass, friend and enemy alike. They say a lot of things, not all of it is true. They say you refused to leave the field even when bombs were falling. They say you carried wounded men on your back through fire." Yuna said nothing. Those memories were too painful to speak about. Captain Wu looked at her for a long moment. Something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. He knew she was lying, she knew he knew, but something held him back. "I would like to search your home," he said finally, "with your permission." "You do not have it. Under Imperial law, I can force entry." "Then do it, but you will have to file charges against me first, and everyone will know that Captain Wu forced his way into the home of a war hero." She tilted her head slightly. The news channels love stories like that. Wu's jaw tightened. For a moment, Yuna thought he would push past her. 300 soldiers against one woman. It would not even be a fight. But he did not move. "I will give you 1 hour," he said quietly. 1 hour to reconsider. Think carefully about what you are protecting and whether it is worth dying for. I already know the answer to that question. Captain Wu turned and walked back to his soldiers. Yuna closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. "That was well done," Rin said. His golden eyes were watching her with something like admiration. "You bought us time." 1 hour, that is not much time. It is more than we had before. Yuna moved to her communication console. She entered a code she had memorized long ago, a code she had promised herself she would never use again. The screen flickered. A face appeared, young and fierce, with short black hair and familiar eyes. "Yuna," the woman on the screen looked shocked. "You are using the emergency channel. What is wrong?" "Hello, Hana, I need help." Hana was Yuna's younger sister. They had not spoken in 3 years, not since Yuna had walked away from everything and everyone. Hana had never forgiven her for leaving. But Hana was also a pilot in the resistance movement, a group fighting against the Empire's cruelty. If anyone could help, it was her. Yuna explained everything quickly. The ship, the dragons, the soldiers outside. She watched her sister's face change from surprise to fear to determination. "Dragons," Hana repeated. "Real dragons from the old stories." "From older than the old stories. Hana, the Empire has been hunting them for 10,000 years. They want to use their power for weapons. I cannot let that happen. And you are asking me to help you fight the entire Imperial strike force. I am asking you to send ships, anything you have, anyone who will come." Hana was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed, a sharp sound with no humor in it. "You disappear for 3 years, you cut off all contact, you break my heart, and now you call asking for an army." She shook her head. "You really are something else, big sister. I know, and I am sorry for everything, but these creatures need help, Hana, and I cannot do it alone." Hana looked at her through the screen. The anger was still there, but something else was there too. Love, the kind that never really goes away. "It will take 12 hours to reach you. Can you hold that long?" "I will have to." "Then hold, I am coming." The screen went dark. Yuna turned to face the dragons. "Help is coming," she said, "but we have to survive until it gets here." "How?" Nari asked. "We cannot fight, we can barely move." "Then I will have to do the fighting for you." Rin made a sound low in his throat, something between a growl and a sigh. "You are one human. They are 300 soldiers." "I know, but I am not going to fight them with weapons." Yuna walked to her window again, looking out at the ring of soldiers. I am going to fight them with something else." Before she could explain, the console beeped. An incoming transmission, marked with the Imperial seal. Yuna turned on the screen. A face appeared that made both dragons go rigid with fear and rage. It was old, impossibly old, with skin like paper and eyes like black stones. Emperor D himself. "Ah," the Emperor said, his voice like dry leaves. "The human woman who thinks she can protect my property." "They are not your property," Yuna said. Her voice was steady, though her hands were shaking. "They are living beings, and I will not hand them over to you." The Emperor laughed. It was an ugly sound, full of cruelty. "You will give them to me, or you will die. My ancestors chased these creatures across the galaxy. They slaughtered thousands of their kind. Do you think I will stop for one insignificant human? I think you will do whatever you want, and I think I will do whatever I can to stop you." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Captain Wu," he spoke to someone off-screen, "you have until nightfall. Retrieve the dragons. Kill anyone who stands in your way. If you fail, I will burn that entire region from orbit." The screen went dark. Yuna turned to face Rin and Nari. Both dragons were staring at her with a strange mix of horror and wonder. "You just told the ruler of the galaxy that you would stop him," Nari said. "You are either very brave or very foolish." Yuna thought about it for a moment. "Probably both," she admitted. "But I have been foolish before. It usually works out." She walked to her closet and pulled out her old medical uniform. She had not worn it in 3 years. It still fit perfectly. "What are you doing?" Rin asked. "I told you I'm going to fight my way." She put on the uniform, straightening the medals she had never wanted, the insignia she had tried to forget. Then she walked to the door. "Yuna," Rin called, "what is your plan?" She looked back at him and smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a brave one. "I am going to remind them who they are, and I am going to hope that it is enough." She opened the door and stepped out into the snow. Yuna walked out of her cottage and stood in the snow. The morning sun was bright now, reflecting off the white ground, making everything shine. She faced 300 soldiers in black armor, their weapons pointed at her heart. She did not flinch. Captain Wu walked forward from the line of soldiers. His face was troubled. He had hoped she would surrender quietly. He did not want this fight. "Your hour is not over yet," he said. "I know. I came out to talk." "There is nothing to talk about. You know what I must do." "Yes, but I think you should hear what I have to say first." She looked past him at the rows of soldiers standing in formation. "I think they all should." Wu hesitated. This was not how these situations usually went. Criminals ran or fought or begged. They did not ask to talk. "Say what you want to say," he said finally, "but it will not change anything." Yuna nodded and stepped forward. She walked until she was standing between Wu and his soldiers, visible to everyone. Her voice carried clearly in the cold air. "How many of you have families?" The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. No one answered. "I am not asking as a trick. I am asking because I want to know. Do you have parents, brothers and sisters, children waiting for you back home?" Slowly a few hands went up, then more, most of them actually. "I had a family too," Yuna said. "My grandmother raised me in a cottage just like this one. She told me stories about Earth, about the old times, about dragons and heroes and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. She died when I was 20. I miss her every day." She turned slowly, making eye contact with as many soldiers as she could. "My name is Yuna. I was a combat medic in the border wars. Maybe some of you were there. Maybe some of you know people who were there. It was not a good war. There are no good wars, but we did what we thought was right." Captain Wu stood silent, watching. He could stop her at any time. He did not. "In the Battle of Mountain Pass, I saved 200 soldiers. That is what the reports say. What they do not say is that half of those soldiers were from the enemy side. I did not care what uniform they wore. They were hurt. They were dying, and I could help. She paused, letting the words sink in. One of them was a young man named Yi. He was 17 years old, fighting for the other side because his village had been conscripted. He had been shot 3 times. He was bleeding out in the mud, crying for his mother. I held his hand. I told him he was going to be okay. He was not. He died looking into my eyes. The soldiers were completely still now. Some of them had lowered their weapons. After that, I promised myself something. I promised that I would never let someone die if I could save them. I promised that I would never look away from suffering just because it was convenient. I came here, to this frozen place, to try to live by that promise. She turned to look at her cottage. 3 days ago, I found 2 creatures dying in the snow. They were hurt and frozen and completely helpless. I did not know what they were. I only knew they needed help, so I helped them. Captain Wu's voice was rough. They are dragons, ancient beings with power beyond imagination. The Emperor wants them for a reason. Yes, he wants to drain their blood and use it to build weapons. Weapons that could destroy planets. Weapons that could kill millions of innocent people. Yuna faced him directly. Is that the reason you became a soldier, to help build planet killers? Wu did not answer. I asked you about families because I want you to think about something. Every soldier here has people who love them. Every soldier here has a story, a life, a reason for being here. And you are being asked to kill me so that the Emperor can have more power to kill others. She spread her hands, showing that she was unarmed. I am not going to fight you. I do not have any weapons. I am just a medic who got tired of watching people die. And I am asking you, one human being to another, to think about what you are doing. The silence stretched out. Yuna could see the soldiers looking at each other, uncertainty in their eyes. She had reached something in them, but was it enough? Captain Wu's communicator crackled. The Emperor's voice filled the air, amplified by speakers on the dropships. Captain Wu, I am losing patience. Take the cottage now. Wu looked at Yuna. He looked at his soldiers. He looked up at the sky. My lord, he said slowly, the woman is unarmed. She poses no threat. Perhaps we could negotiate. There will be no negotiation. Kill her and retrieve my dragons, or I will destroy the entire area from orbit. Yuna's heart went cold. She had known this might happen. She had hoped it would not. If you kill me, she said loudly, it will prove everything I just said. You will not be soldiers anymore. You will be murderers, following a tyrant who cares nothing for your lives. The Emperor laughed through the speakers. Enough of this. Initiating orbital strike, coordinates locked. High above, in the blackness of space, something moved. A weapon on one of the Emperor's ships powered up, gathering energy for a blast that could level mountains. And then behind Yuna, the cottage door exploded outward. Rin and Nari burst into the open air. They were wounded and weak, but they were also ancient and powerful. Their scales caught the sunlight, gold and silver blazing like fire. Their wings spread wide, blocking out the sky. The soldiers fell back in terror. Even Captain Wu took several steps backward, his face white with shock. Yuna stared up at them, her heart pounding. What are you doing? You are too weak. You will hurt yourselves. Rin's voice filled her mind, calm and strong. You stood for us. Now we stand for you. The orbital strike came down. A beam of pure destruction aimed directly at the cottage. It hit the atmosphere and accelerated, falling like the fist of an angry god. Rin and Nari moved together, their minds and powers linking as they had 10,000 years ago. They raised their heads and projected a shield, a dome of golden light that surrounded the cottage and everyone near it. The beam hit the shield. The world turned white. Yuna felt heat and pressure and noise beyond anything she had ever experienced. She threw herself to the ground, covering her head with her arms. Around her, soldiers did the same. But the shield held. The dragons roared with pain and effort, their bodies shaking, but they did not fall. The energy of the orbital strike crashed against their barrier like a wave against a rock. And then Yuna felt something she did not expect, a pull like someone reaching for her hand. Without thinking, she ran toward the dragons. She pressed her palms against Rin's scales, feeling the heat of his power flowing through him. "Let me help," she said. "You are human, you cannot." "I do not care what I cannot do, let me try." Something passed between them, a connection deep and ancient. Yuna felt power flowing through her, into the shield, strengthening it. Her whole body felt like it was on fire, but she did not let go. The beam lasted for 10 seconds, then 20, then it finally stopped. The shield flickered and faded. Rin and Nari collapsed to the ground, exhausted. Yuna fell to her knees between them, breathing hard, steam rising from her skin. The cottage still stood. The soldiers were alive. The orbital strike had failed. Captain Wu approached slowly. He stopped a few meters away and looked at the three of them, dragon, and human, lying together in the snow. Then slowly, he lowered his weapon. "I became a soldier because I wanted to protect people," he said quietly. "This is not protection. This is murder, and I will not be a part of it anymore." He turned to his soldiers. "Anyone who agrees with me, lower your weapons and step back. Anyone who wants to follow the Emperor's orders can try to get through me first." For a moment no one moved. Then one soldier lowered his weapon, then another, then another. In the end, almost every soldier in the ring dropped their weapons and stepped back. The Emperor's voice screamed through the speakers, ordering them to fight, threatening them with execution, promising rewards for anyone who completed the mission. No one listened. Yuna looked up at Captain Wu. Her vision was blurry, and she was shaking from exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispered. Wu looked back at her. His eyes were wet. "No, thank you, for reminding me who I wanted to be." In the sky above, the Emperor's ships began to retreat. Without soldiers on the ground willing to fight, there was nothing more they could do. Yuna smiled weakly and let herself fall backward into the snow. The sky above was clear and blue. The sun was warm on her face. They had done it. They had survived. For now, 12 hours later, Hana arrived with her fleet. She had expected a battlefield. She had expected destruction and fire and death. Instead, she found something she could not explain. Her sister Yuna was sitting on the porch of her cottage, drinking hot tea. Beside her sat Captain Wu, the former commander of the Imperial Strike Force, and behind them, resting peacefully in the snow, were two enormous dragons. Around the cottage, former Imperial soldiers were helping to set up tents and cook food. They worked together, talking quietly, as if they had not been pointing weapons at each other just hours before. Hana landed her ship and stepped out, staring at the scene with her mouth open. "What happened here?" she asked. Yuna smiled and stood up to greet her sister. "It is a long story. I am glad you came, even if we did not need the rescue." "Did not need the rescue. There were 300 soldiers trying to kill you." 300 soldiers who changed their minds. Hana looked at Captain Wu, who nodded politely. She looked at the dragons, who watched her with ancient, knowing eyes. She looked back at her sister. "You are going to have to explain everything, very slowly, with small words." So Yuna explained. She told Hana about finding the dragons, about caring for them, about the standoff and the speech and the orbital strike. She told her about the shield, about the connection she had felt when she touched the dragons, about the moment when the soldiers decided they did not want to be killers anymore. When she finished, Hana sat in silence for a long time. "You did all that," she said finally, "by talking, by being stubborn, by refusing to give up." "I had help." "You had yourself, that is what you had." Hana shook her head slowly. "I spent 3 years being angry at you for walking away from everything. I thought you were running from your problems, but you were not running. You were healing, and when you were ready, you came back stronger than ever. I do not feel strong, I feel tired. Strong people always feel tired. That is how you know you are doing it right. The sisters embraced. 3 years of distance and anger and hurt melted away in that moment. Whatever had broken between them was healing now. Over the next few days, news of what had happened on KL-7 spread across the galaxy. It started with the soldiers who had been there, calling home to tell their families. It continued with resistance transmissions, broadcasting the story to anyone who would listen. But what really changed everything was the dragons. Rin recovered enough strength to send a mental message that reached across the stars. His ancient voice touched millions of minds, telling them the truth about the dragons, about the genocide, about the Emperor's plan to use their power for destruction. And then he told them about Yuna. He told them about the human woman who had found them dying and refused to walk away. He told them about her stubborn courage, her endless compassion, her willingness to stand against an empire with nothing but her words. He told them that in 10,000 years of life, he had never met anyone with a stronger heart. The galaxy listened. On 100 worlds, people who had been afraid to resist started to believe that change was possible. If one human woman could stand against the Emperor, maybe they could too. If soldiers could choose to put down their weapons, maybe others could follow. The story of the dragon woman of KL-7 became a symbol, a spark that lit fires across the stars. Emperor D tried to stop it. He ordered his fleet to attack KL-7 to destroy the dragons and everyone who had helped them. But when the orders came through, something unexpected happened. The admirals refused. Captain Wu's defection had inspired others. Officers who had hidden their doubts for years finally spoke up. Commanders who had followed orders out of fear decided that their fear was not worth their souls. Emperor D was arrested by his own guards, taken to a holding cell to await trial for crimes against countless worlds. His 3,000-year dynasty ended not with a battle, but with a quiet refusal to follow cruelty anymore. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. A new council governed the former empire, made up of representatives from every species and every world. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems, still work to be done. But it was a beginning. Captain Wu had become the leader of a reformed military, one focused on protection instead of conquest. He spent his time training new soldiers to think for themselves, to question orders that felt wrong, to remember that they were people first and warriors second. Hana's resistance movement had become a legitimate political party, pushing for democracy and equal rights across the galaxy. She traveled constantly, speaking to crowds, building alliances, fighting for the better future she believed in. And Yuna. Yuna still lived in her cottage on KL-7. She had been offered positions of power. Leaders from across the galaxy wanted her as an advisor, a symbol, a figurehead. She refused them all. "I am not a politician," she told them. "I am just a medic who grows herbs. Let me stay where I belong." So she stayed, but she was not alone anymore. Rin and Nari had chosen to remain with her. They could have gone anywhere in the galaxy. They were free now, for the first time in 10,000 years. But they stayed in the little cottage on the frozen plain, sleeping in the snow beside the woman who had saved their lives. On the first anniversary of the day Yuna found them, she sat on her porch watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and gold. The mountains in the distance were covered in fresh snow. Rin and Nari flew above, stretching their wings, enjoying the freedom they had almost forgotten. Nari swooped down playfully and blew a gust of icy wind at Yuna, covering her in snow. "Hey," Yuna shouted, laughing and brushing the snow off her coat. "That was rude." Nari's laughter echoed in her mind. "You needed to stop being so serious. You were getting that look on your face." "What look?" The one where you are thinking too much about the past. Today is for celebration, not brooding. Rin landed beside the cottage, folding his wings gracefully. He was fully healed now, magnificent and powerful. But when he looked at Yuna, his ancient eyes were gentle. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Everything that happened, the danger we brought to your door?" Yuna considered the question. She thought about the fear she had felt, the exhaustion, the moment when she truly believed she was going to die. She thought about all the ways her quiet life had been shattered. Then she thought about Hana, speaking to crowds across the galaxy. She thought about Captain Wu, training soldiers to be better people. She thought about the messages she received every day from strangers who told her that her story had given them hope. She shook her head. "You did not bring anything to my door," she said. "You were brought to it, by chance or fate or the universe, and I decided what to do next. That is all any of us can do. Decide to be kind when it would be easier to look away." Rin was quiet for a long moment. Then very gently he bowed his great head. "The old legends said that dragons were the mightiest beings in the universe. We believed it for 10,000 years. He looked at her with wonder in his eyes. "I think the legends were wrong." Yuna smiled and reached out to touch his scales. They were warm now, full of life. "I think," she said quietly, "that might really does not mean what people think it means. True strength is not about power or weapons or fear. It is about choosing compassion when hatred would be easier. It is about standing up when sitting down would be safer. It is about believing in something even when believing seems foolish." Nari landed beside them, curling her tail around Yuna protectively. "The humans have a gift," she said. "You are small and fragile and your lives are so short, but you burn so brightly, you love so fiercely, you hope so stubbornly." She nuzzled Yuna gently with her great head. "Perhaps that is why you have spread so far across the stars. You refuse to let anything stop you." Yuna laughed and leaned against her friend. "We are just very stubborn. It is our best and worst quality." The three of them sat together as the sun set, and the stars came out. The same stars that Rin and Nari had watched 10,000 years ago, when they fell asleep with no hope of ever waking. Now they were awake, now they were free, and they had found something they had never expected to find. A home, a family, a future. All because one stubborn human woman had looked at two dying strangers and decided that their lives were worth saving. In the distance, a ship approached. Yuna recognized it as Hana's transport, coming for her monthly visit. Soon the cottage would be full of noise and laughter and arguments about politics. Yuna smiled and stood up to greet her sister. The galaxy was still healing. There was still so much work to be done. But for this moment in this place, everything was exactly as it should be. And that was enough.